Okay, let's unpack this. We've got a really unusual journey to explore today. Imagine someone with decades in IT, right? Structured world, international clients, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, a very established career path.
Exactly. And then a shift, a really significant one. We're talking roles like sovereign for your peace, freedom, and self-determination.
Quite a title.
And citizen journalist, even querdenker, which, translates roughly to lateral thinker.
It's a fascinating set of materials we have, isn't it? A very detailed CV mapping out that whole IT background.
Right.
And then Markus Huck's own writings, his reflections on what he calls his true calling.
And the contrast is just striking.
It really is. That's what grabs you.
Absolutely. So for everyone listening, our mission here in this deep dive is to try and understand this major turning point in Markus Huck's professional life. What could be behind these, let's say, less conventional roles he's taken on? What can we maybe learn from such a dramatic change?
Exactly. By tracing his steps, looking at the sources, exploring potential motivations, maybe we can uncover some broader insights.
Insights relevant to all of us.
Could be ideas about navigating change, finding maybe a different kind of purpose. It's about gaining knowledge, making sense of things.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. That IT foundation, his education.
Right. So he got a Diplom Informatik, FH, from Hochschule Karlsruhe. That would be around 1992.
And the FH part is key.
Yes, Fachhochschule. In English, we'd say University of Applied Sciences.
So more hands-on, practical.
Exactly. It blends strong theory with very practical, real-world application. His focus was Wirtschaftsinformatik, business informatics.
Ah, the intersection of tech and business. Makes sense.
Right from the start, you see that dual focus, technical skills, but also understanding how businesses tick.
Sounds like a really solid base to build on.
It seems like it, and you can see how that likely helped in his first job.
Which was application developer.
Yep, at Gesellschaft for Finance Marketing MBH. Now, this company was part of Deutsche Bank, located in Eschborn, near Frankfurt, not Bonn, as some earlier material suggested. He was there late 94 to early 97.
A few years in a major corporate setting then.
Definitely. And the location was specific, too. The Deutsche Bank Technology Center on Herrhausen Allee used to be called Stuttgarter Straße.
Got it. And what he was doing there, that tells us something, too, doesn't it? Implementing Lotus Notes.
Oh, absolutely. Lotus Notes was huge back then. A leading collaborative platform.
Implementing that in a big bank.
Yeah.
That's a major project.
Huge undertaking. Probably involved a lot of organizational change, managing communication, that sort of thing.
For sure. And he was also building workflow applications on Notes.
Yes, and developing software for electronic banking, liquidity management, really core financial tech stuff.
That workflow piece is interesting. Hints at an early grasp of processes, optimization.
Good point. Yeah, understanding how things work and how tech can improve them. A skill that probably came in handy later.
Okay. So after that corporate experience, he makes a big move. Self-employment.
A really substantial period. 20 years. Independent consultant.
20 years. Wow.
From February 1997 all the way to February 2017. Based in Waiblingen, by the way, not Ingolstadt.
And the client list he built up over those 2 decades.
It's remarkably broad and pretty impressive.
It really is. Daimler-Benz is a big one.
Yeah.
Which, became Daimler-Chrysler, then Daimler AG. Clearly a long-term relationship there.
Yes, and look at the variety of Mercedes-Benz departments he worked with.
Right. MEP, PMC, EPS, APS purchasing strategy, JSP2, global service and parts, even R&D.
That range just speaks volumes about his adaptability, doesn't it? And the depth of his skills to contribute across so many different parts of a huge company like that.
It really does. And not just in Germany. His CV lists project locations for Mercedes-Benz all over the world.
Yeah, Canada, Mexico, France, Czech Republic, Netherlands, Russia, Thailand, China, US, Brazil, South Africa.
That's a massive global footprint for an independent consultant.
It really highlights his ability to, navigate different cultures, different ways of working.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And beyond Daimler, who else? MBRDI in India. Sun Microsystems. Remember that?
Oh, yeah, Sun. A real tech giant back then. Major player.
Plus Davy GmbH, Infotechnik Rachel, MB Tech, now part of AKA, right? Rafer Group, Leica over in Wetzlar, Weisscript. It paints a picture of someone who was definitely in high demand.
Absolutely. You don't keep clients like that for 2 decades unless you're consistently delivering value, building that trust.
And being your own boss for that long. Managing your own projects. That must build a real sense of autonomy.
Oh, without a doubt. That kind of long-term independence It probably shaped his whole approach to work, his sense of what he could achieve.
Which makes his next move quite interesting, doesn't it? After all that time being self-employed, he goes back to traditional employment.
It is intriguing. March 2017, he joins Nobit Solutions GmbH, Senior Requirements Analyst.
So, back as an employee and also a bit of a role shift within IT.
Yeah, exactly. And the client, still Daimler AG, this time in Böblingen.
And the focus.
Requirements engineering, sure, but also software testing, documentation, and significantly, big data evaluation.
Big data evaluation.
Yeah.
Doing what exactly?
The notes say he was evaluating control unit tests, led to creating a report on their rapid maturity assessment.
Okay, so still very much tech, but maybe moving more towards analysis, strategy, after years of hands-on execution.
That makes sense. A natural progression, perhaps. Build up experience, then move to a more analytical, overarching role.
Maybe a different kind of challenge, too, after being your own boss for so long. A change of pace.
Could be. Precisely. And that analytical focus, it continues in his next roles. Network performance analyst.
Right. First with Expert Media. June to December 2019, in Ingolstadt this time.
That's right. His work there was mainly improving the Speed Test Plus tool for the Baden-Württemberg region.
Okay.
And again, you see those familiar things: requirements engineering, planning sprints, lots of testing integration, regression.
Standard software development stuff. Quality assurance.
Exactly. Plus building dashboards to visualize all that network data.
So big data again, but specifically network performance.
Using tools like Grafana, ClickView. This experience, analyzing large data sets, probably sharpened his ability to spot patterns, draw conclusions from complex info, skills that, could be useful elsewhere too.
So really digging into network speed, user experience, keeping those tech skills sharp, which you have to do, right?
Absolutely crucial in tech. Then, January 2020, he moves to Vodafone directly. Full-time role in Stuttgart.
Still working on that Speed Test Plus project.
Yes, continuing that work until July 2021. And it's worth noting, the Vodafone Unity Media merger was happening right then, February 2020. The Unity Media brand eventually disappeared.
Did his role change much going in-house at Vodafone?
It actually expanded quite a bit. He took on designing and setting up the entire test environment.
Oh, interesting. So not just looking at the results, but building the whole setup to get the data.
Exactly. Setting up networks, configuring all sorts of test machines, Macs, Raspberry Pis, Windows, plus a whole range of mobile devices, iOS, Android.
All that.
To accurately simulate real-world network conditions. It was a step up from pure analysis to really architecting and managing complex test systems.
Okay, so that feels like a clear progression within IT. Build, analyze, then manage the whole system. A logical upward path.
It does. Shows continued growth, more responsibility within that tech domain.
Okay, so up to mid-2021, we see this established, successful IT professional, adaptable, experienced, worked independently, worked in big companies, but then
the narrative takes that really sharp turn we mentioned.
Right. This is where his personal notes, his reflections become really crucial.
Incredibly revealing. Starting around June 2020, actually overlapping with his Vodafone job, these new honorary titles start appearing.
Honorary, he calls them.
That's his term. But they seem to represent a profound shift in his focus, his priorities.
This is the pivot point, and that first new role is quite something.
Sovereign for your peace, freedom, and self-determination.
Wow. Okay, that is quite a leap from network performance analysis.
Indeed. A move from the technical, the analytical, to the deeply personal, philosophical even.
And he talks about it like finding his true calling. Actively engaging in this office, as he puts it.
Yes, but he's very clear. He says it exists without explicit public legitimacy.
Meaning?
Meaning it seems to be a self-defined position,
right,
rooted in his own convictions, not any kind of formal recognition. He mentions goals for this office, but they're pretty abstract in the materials we have.
That lack of public legitimacy, that seems key. It really underlines that this is an internal shift, driven by his own beliefs.
It does.
You have to wonder what sparks that. After such a long, successful career in a totally different field, maybe the events of mid-2020, globally, played a role, prompted some reevaluation.
It certainly makes you ask what might lead someone to redefine their identity so dramatically.
Exactly. And alongside this sovereign role, starting a bit earlier, April 2020, he lists burger journalist, citizen journalist, documenting the wealth and wandel.
The world transformation.
Right. And his inspirations here are pretty heavy hitters.
Hegel, Schiller, Gustav Struve. Significant historical, philosophical figures.
Figures who grappled with major social, political change, That's quite an intellectual frame he's putting around this.
It is. And he also mentions a past internship with Prince Max von Baden.
Who played a key role in Germany after World War I, right?
Exactly. It suggests maybe a long-standing interest in periods of big societal shifts. It seems like he's interpreting current events through that lens, seeing them as part of a larger global transformation.
So he's not just watching, he's actively interpreting things through history, philosophy, seeing himself as a chronicler of this world transformation.
Precisely. And he's actively producing content. He has a YouTube channel, Markus Huck on YouTube.
Yeah, it looks like quite a few videos, decent subscriber numbers, though he mentions a potential shadow ban.
Which might suggest the content touches on maybe controversial topics?
Possibly.
He also has a very active Telegram channel, me, director of Corona Reset 3. Thousands of posts there.
Wow, okay. And LinkedIn too.
Yep. Maintains a LinkedIn profile, has a notable following there as well.
So using multiple platforms to get his perspective out, what's the main focus of this citizen journalism work?
He describes it as providing an independent voice, reporting on news, events from Stuttgart, Germany, and beyond.
Covering what kinds of things?
Demonstrations, court cases, aiming for a critical, independent view. Seeking truth, as he puts it.
Okay.
And he admirably connects this back to his IT values, logic, charity, respect. And his personal motto comes up again. Order through self-determination, thanks to authentic gratitude.
And that title, Director of Corona Reset 3, which he started using December 2020, that definitely situates his work in the context of, well, everything happening globally then.
It certainly provides a specific frame for how he's viewing and interpreting events.
Okay. Then there's a third role he takes on. Starting May 2020.
Yeah.
Queerdenker.
Lateral thinker.
Right. Now, that term queerdenker, it became very strongly associated with specific protest movements in Germany during that period.
Important context. Yes. And interestingly, he mentions an article in Die Zeit, a major German newspaper from 2023. Apparently, it called him the Haus- und Hof-Streamer.
Which means roughly.
Sort of the house and yard streamer, or maybe in-house streamer, for the Stuttgart Queerdenker movement.
So suggesting he was seen as a key media person for them, documenting their activities.
That seems to be the implication, and listeners can certainly look into those claims about his streaming activity if they want more detail. He wasn't just using the label. It seems he was actively involved in documenting things related to the movement.
What do his own notes say?
They detail quite a lot of activity, documenting hundreds of rallies, Germany, France, covering worldwide protests, interviewing activists about their experiences, what they learned, their hopes.
Does he mention specific events or people?
Yes, specifically covering rallies during Michael Ballweg's time in custody and the trials of Ballweg and Dr. Heinrich Fichtner, among others. He names several people whose activities he documented.
And his motto for this queerdenker role is also revealing, you said.
It is. Be not a perpetrator, not a victim, and not a judge, but an observer, and follow your calling.
An observer.
Yeah, it really emphasizes his stated aim. Document events, don't take sides, don't judge. Just witness, record, and follow his own sense of purpose.
So a conscious choice to be present, observe, follow his own internal compass within all that, not necessarily advocate.
Exactly. So in a fairly short space of time, you see this huge transition. Senior IT pro to self-identified sovereign individual, citizen journalist documenting a global shift, and a queerdenker focused on observation.
It's a truly profound change in identity and focus. Which brings us to something in his notes called Exemplary Results, June 2020, also called Docu-Paradise on Earth.
Yes, co-authored with someone named Gabby Fassbender. It's basically a list, 17 points outlining a vision for a better world.
And looking through these points, it's funny how echoes of his IT background seem to pop up.
Absolutely. Like point number 1, the need for a clearly defined, timed goal.
Sounds like Project Management 101, straight out of the IT playbook.
Doesn't it? Applying that structured, goal-oriented thinking to these big, idealistic aims, it suggests that practical mindset is still there underneath.
You're right. Using those structured principles for, well, envisioning utopia, almost. What other points stand out from this paradise list?
Several deal with interpersonal stuff, how we relate to each other, our perspectives.
Right.
Things like find your own goal, understand others' goals, be open to different views, and this one, not needing to be right.
That suggests some humility, recognizing other viewpoints are valid.
Seems like it. And then there's a really intriguing one, allowing oneself to be considered an idiot. being okay with that.
That's interesting. What do you make of that?
Well, it suggests maybe a willingness to think outside the box, even if it means people disagree or criticize you. Maybe a detachment from ego, too, exploring ideas without needing to always look smart.
Interesting take. What else?
He also includes bad things only happen in your head, emphasizing how our internal take on things shapes reality.
Right, the power of perception.
And then the point about inherent goodness. Goodness is already inside us. We just have to find it again. And this is where he adds that little note in parentheses.
The one about the index problem.
Yeah. Index problem. Implicits, Aaron.
Index problem, implicit memory. That sounds very technical. Almost cognitive science-y.
It does, doesn't it? It's like he's saying our basic goodness is stored away, maybe implicitly, like memories we can't always easily access. The index problem could be the difficulty in finding or retrieving that inherent goodness.
Wow. So blending philosophy with concepts that feel almost computational or psychological.
Yeah.
Maybe his IT brain provides analogies for these abstract ideas.
It's a really unique mix, isn't it? The philosophical meets the almost scientific way of thinking. The document stresses accepting these points, believing in them as a path towards, well, potentially a peace treaty among all people.
Very ambitious.
Hugely. But his thinking here wasn't set in stone, was it? He kept reflecting and revising.
No, and that's important. He revisited that all people are good idea later, late 2021, early 2022.
Right, and he first observed that just saying it, without really internalizing it, could lead to people kind of testing each other. Looking for proof it's not true.
Acknowledging the gap between belief and reality. Smart.
But then his view evolves more. He starts questioning if you even need to actively missionize, try to convince others about this inherent goodness.
So what was his conclusion?
Basically that the real need isn't conversion, it's ending mistrust. Stopping the effort to change people's minds, and instead just listening respectfully, without prejudice.
That evolution shows real intellectual honesty, I think. A willingness to rethink, refine his understanding, shifts the focus from asserting a belief to how we interact.
Exactly. It definitely shows a mind still curious, still open to adapting its views.
Okay, so beyond these main roles in the Paradise document, any other projects or activities mentioned?
Yes, app development, another honorary activity, he calls it. Something he's apparently been doing since 2016.
And it sounds like quite a complex app.
Oh, yeah. It tracks movement, mobile Wi-Fi strength, processes data in real time, gives voice output, pulls local info, archives data.
Wow, that's a lot of functionality.
It is. He talks about collecting and interpreting this data in ways that sound a bit like machine learning or AI, even tracking steering movements with GPS down to the millisecond to create abstract descriptions of journeys.
That's incredibly detailed. Why build something like that? What's the purpose?
His stated reason is pretty interesting. He says it's to continuously test his own cognitive abilities.
Test himself. How does building an app do that?
Well, he explains that any logical flaws, any inconsistencies in his thinking become immediately obvious when he tries to code them.
Ah, I see.
For a complex app like that to work, the underlying logic has to be perfect. If the app breaks, it means there was an error in his reasoning.
So coding becomes a form of self-reflection, a way to check his own logic.
A practical way to stress test his own thinking, exactly. So even with all this philosophical, social exploration happening, those technical skills are still active. But now they're almost a tool for intellectual discipline, self-examination.
That technical thread really does run through his whole story, doesn't it?
It does. It shows how those foundational skills keep informing his approach, even in seemingly unrelated areas.
And as we get near the end of his notes, he comes back to that sovereign role.
Yes, he reiterates the responsibility he feels comes with that calling. Active since June 2020, he emphasizes.
It really feels like that self-declared sovereignty might be the umbrella concept connecting everything else.
It could be, like an underlying principle that informs the citizen journalism, the Danker observations, the broader philosophical stuff.
The unifying idea that gives it all some coherence, perhaps.
Makes sense. And then, as we mentioned, the document ends with that very direct question.
Aimed right at the reader, and now at everyone listening.
What could be your task to support the work of Markus Huck?
It's a clear invitation, isn't it? Consider his mission, maybe how you might align with it or contribute.
A direct call for engagement with his perspective, his self-defined work.
So wrapping up this deep dive, we've traced Markus Huck's really extraordinary evolution. From that long, successful IT career decades, global work, to this very different present. Citizen journalism, social observation, philosophical exploration, all under this banner of self-declared sovereignty.
Yeah, the key takeaways are just that stark contrast, past and present, the profound nature of the shift, and the depth of his current explorations. You see it in the paradise points, the ongoing reflections.
And for listeners, always trying to understand different views, navigate a changing world, Huck's journey is a compelling case study. Individual agency pursuing purpose outside traditional paths.
Right. It makes you think about how people interpret and respond to big societal shifts, this Welt im Wandel, the world in transition, that he's so focused on documenting.
And the final question he poses, what could be your task to support the work of Markus Huck? Maybe it trumps a broader thought for all of us. Thinking about his path, his question, what does it mean for any of us to engage with the changes we see? What role might someone choose or feel called to play?
Yeah.
Observing, documenting, maybe even trying to influence things. It's definitely food for thought.
It is. So maybe the final thought to leave everyone with is just that. In a world that keeps changing, what might your own calling be? Something to mull over after we finish here.